Welcome to the Wasatch Streams. Pristine waters rush down the mountain fronts, collecting in pools, and create unique ecosystems that beckon large animals to congregate. Just as the water flows down the Wasatch Front, the energy that it carries flows from one species to another, starting in the smallest of photosynthesizers and working its way up to titanic animals like 6-foot-tall moose or 300-plus-pound bears. These beautiful waters, for all their might, are fragile. The ecosystem is under threat and may be teetering on the brink of utter destruction. Invasive species, pollution, and the diverting of the waters for agriculture. These streams are under assault, and if we do nothing to preserve or save them, they will be destroyed. But before we can understand the consequences of the stream's demise, it is imperative to understand what the ecosystem looks like under ideal conditions. Starting off at the base of any ecosystem, we have the microworld. Here, phyla of organisms compete for resources. Micronutrients, the basis of life, things such as carbon, phosphorus, and light itself are up for competition and grabs. Phytoplankton and algae are at the very bottom of this food chain. They produce sugars in photoreceptive sites called chloroplasts. They consume nothing but the sun's energy, and are therefore the basis of which this ecosystem flourishes on. Without them, everything falls apart. Slightly working our way up, we have zooplankton, very small organisms indeed, which consume these phytoplankton. Rotifers, like the ones pictured here, fill their bellies full of these phytoplankton. We can see inside them the glimmering emeralds of the receptive sites still glowing as the rotifer consumes. Zooplankton are their food for other organisms. Arthropods in their larval stage often eat zooplankton. Here we have mosquito larvae. In this form, it mainly eats the zooplankton and other eggs of arthropods. But they are hardly the top of the food chain. The energy flow continues to work its way up. Here we have rainbow trout. These trout are powerful swimmers, able to move from lake to lake and up even shallow streams. But these fish do not get to be this size right from birth. They must eat hundreds of pounds of insects to grow to this size. And we can see that this is not a food chain, but a food web. And it is hardly just a line up. From fish, we can see the easy translation from aquatic life to terrestrial life. Bears and cougars, the apex predator of the Wasatch Front, consume fish and bring the nutrients from the lake to the land. We also see another apex predator here, an invasive species, Homo sapiens. But Homo sapiens are not the most devastating invader. Rather, a consequence of their invasion is. This is Lake Michigan, one of the Great Lakes in the middle of North America, and they have a massive epidemic on their hands. 2 invasive species threaten to consume all of native wildlife out of house and home. Zebra and quagga mussels, so named for their stripes resembling their terrestrial counterparts, they ravage the environment. These filter feeders devastate zooplankton, algae, and phytoplankton populations. The removal of this base affects many of the other organisms in their environment, if not all of them. These freshwater mussels first came in contact when they were transferred over from Europe on shipping vessels to the Americas, and they devastate any environment that they come in contact with. This is Lake Powell. It is a smaller lake in the middle of Utah, thousands of miles away from the problems of Lake Michigan. However, Homo sapiens have wreaked their devastating effects here as well. Humans have transferred over 10,000 species across the globe, moving plants and animals from their native environments to new locations. Sometimes the new species struggles to survive and die out. Other times they flourish. Quagga mussels are part of the former. They have invaded Lake Powell and are now beginning to go upstream. These freshwater mussels, as we have stated, consume the very basis of the ecosystem. They grow at an exponential rate, swiftly overtaking any native mollusks and bottom feeders, causing the extinction of these unique organisms. Their growth is spurred on by the consumption of millions and millions of small invertebrates. This creates a deficit for the available food sources for larger organisms, such as crawfish and dragonflies, which then creates a vacuum for fish and other intermediate organisms, preventing the flow of energy from lakes to terrestrial land. The lack of these fish will hurt the survivability of predators such as bear and cougar. A lack of apex predators may sound like a treat to us humans who are occasionally threatened by them, and to the native deer and moose populations, which will surely be appreciative of the lack of hunters. However, a deficit of hunters and an abundance of prey is a horrible consequence for grasses, which will be destroyed by the increased onslaught. We have seen this effect happen in other places in the globe, such as Yellowstone National Park, which, when the wolf population was groomed down by human influence, large populations of bison and deer destroyed native wildlife. A very similar effect may happen here if the river population of quagga mussels is not controlled. But this may be avoided. Utah is taking precautions to prevent the spread of quagga mussels. Here we have a brief interview with one of the park representatives keeping the mussels from spreading.
We're up here at the Bear Lake Rest Area. We've got a watercraft inspection station. What this is designed to do is it's designed to protect Bear Lake from quagga, zebra mussels, and other invasive species. We focus on clean, drain, dry. That's the best way to kill anything that might be on your boat, but if there's standing water from, say, Powell or Lake Mead, other places that are infected with quagga mussel or zebra mussel, basically we use a pressure washer with hot water to decontaminate the water and the vessel. It basically kills all the aquatic invasive species that might be on the vessel, and then we inspect for anything physical that we can remove. You're required to stop here if you have any watercrafting, including kayaks, canoes, wakeboard, all the big vessels as well as the small ones. The service is free. When they come through, we do a basic inspection. We ask the boater where they've been to decide whether they've been in an infested water body. We check for standing water and that kind of thing, and if they've cleaned, drained, and dried properly and completed their mandatory dry time, then we let them go on their way. If they need a decontamination because they're at a risk to Bear Lake, then we'll go ahead and do the hot water decontamination.
Left to their own devices, the quagga mussels will spread up the rivers and down the streams, infecting most of Utah's waterfronts, and the biodiversity will diminish because of this. However, we can prevent the encroaching flood of mussels on our streams. Removal of the eggs and the mussels themselves from boats is imperative. Even one fertile organism can spread hundreds of thousands of its kind in its lifetime. Even small light craft must be inspected to prevent them from moving to the largest of Utah's lakes and streams. Most importantly, it is the responsibility of individuals to prevent the impact. Governments can only do so much, but if we do not do our hand in preventing the spread of these mussels, then there is no hope. By choosing to be complicit to searches and investigations of even small watercraft, you too can make a huge difference. Please be considerate of our Wasatch streams.